and company have done about more than 1,000 transformations successfully around the globe. And it's all about how do we self-regulate an organization, how do we make the organization robust and sustainable. And so that's the theme that we are talking about. So it would be a fantastic experience for the people. You're not going to do the firefighting every day, and the whole transformation becomes seamless. I think this is where today's discussion is. I'm sure that you are going to enjoy. I would request Constantine Malik to continue with this, and then we also would have a question and answer session where we would be able to discuss more about what exactly the structure and how does the structure works. I leave it to him for explaining this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Oops, just a second. It's okay. I thought I was destroying the microphone, but it's all okay. Can I take this down a bit? Otherwise I don't see my computer. Excellent. Thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure. It's my first time in Chennai, first time in India, actually. So because of this occasion, allow me to first thank the people that, I owe it to that I am here. My good friends from Rambarrier, Shiva, Partha, Krish, thanks so much for having me. Dear esteemed Mr. Singh, it's a real pleasure. Thanks so much for bringing me to your exciting country. I hope that together we will have the chance to do a lot of transformations together and help organizations manage to navigate their complexity with a lot of success. Thank you also so much, Captain Yajkumar, for inviting me here and for giving me the chance and the opportunity to speak at this very esteemed and illustrious organization in place. Navigating complexity. I have to tell you, I said it's my first trip to India. I've been dealing with complexity for 20 years and more, professionally for around 20. And I thought, I know quite a bit something about it. I'll have something to say. And then I came to Mumbai and saw the traffic and how people behave in it and move around. And I came to Kolkata and saw the traffic. Chennai is a bit better. But I heard about the Mahakumbh, where 450 million people are about to descend on one place. And that needs to be organized. And I've been told by your son, Mr. Singh, that Hinduism has millions of gods. And I was thinking to myself, oh God, what have I done by saying yes to this? I'm not sure I can tell you anything about complexity. It seems that complexity is rooted in your culture and has been so for thousands of years. And that you, indeed, and that you probably have a very inherent handling of complexity and how to move about it. To be quite honest, this is, like I said, I have a week in your country. I'm sure I'll be back. But it's certainly the most complex country I've been to, and I have a feeling you don't know what complexity is until you've been to India. So I have great respect for your leaders, politically and otherwise, in how this works. I also understand that, unlike our countries, you're not necessarily a rule-based society, but more a principle-based society. And there's a difference in complexity science between algorithms and heuristics. And the entire world talks about algorithms. But in the face of complexity, algorithms are usually useless. And you need to go to heuristics, guidelines, principles, right? It's more, a heuristic is a formula to find. An algorithm is a formula to find whereas a heuristic could be more looked at as a formula to search. And so I think a lot that your country represents is very inherently, prone to complexity and intuitively understands complexity quite well. So I thought, what can I tell you? Well, I hope I still have something new to tell you and something interesting, especially from a not necessarily intuitive point, but rather from a scientific point of view. Because you see, and from an application point of view. Because you see, our organization was founded 40 years ago by my father, Professor Dr. Fred McMulloch. I don't like to talk about myself, but I love to talk about my father. I'm very proud of him. And he's supposed to, or he's thought of as one of the foremost management thinkers and appliers in certainly the German-speaking countries where we come from, and probably in Europe. Now, he founded our organization, the Malik Institute, 40 years ago out of the University of St. Gallen. It's a small but illustrious university in the very east of Switzerland. And it championed the systems-oriented management approach. Now, the idea behind that was that maybe and potentially for management, for corporations, for the management of organizations, we might be able to learn more from the complexity sciences, that is cybernetics, as was mentioned, that is the system science, and that is bionics. Thank you so much for showing the video. I didn't expect that. I would have dove deeper into that had I known. That we might be able to learn more from these sciences for management than from business administration alone. Business administration is necessary, but might not be sufficient. There might be other sciences as well that can help us navigate complexity. And the notion was, back then already, that probably with the 21st century, we will be entering an age of complexity. And that complexity will be a competitive force for whoever who knows how to navigate it. And I believe that this is so important. One of the great pioneers, he has been mentioned, Stafford Beer. He is considered the father of management cybernetics, a very close friend of my father's and mine, and we have the honor to continue his legacy also. He was, by the way, a lover of India. He spent a lot of his time here. He was stationed here as the commander of a Gurkha regiment and was himself a tantric yogi, was fluent in Sanskrit, and he was very much inspired and influenced by Indian culture for all his writings and everything that he had developed, because he never saw a difference. And here we come again to your intrinsic affinity towards complexity and cybernetics. He never saw a difference between his spiritual experiences and cybernetic and complexity science. So he found a lot of that in your country. And he said that complexity must be designed if we wanted to do the least harm to people and assets. Complexity always plays out, but if we just let it, then it does so often with negative consequences. And so it needs to be designed and to do what we want to do, to be able for us to guide through complexity and to use complexity to our advantage and to do the best for our organizations and our people. Now, please let me show you how we understand complexity a little bit. I said it, we have thought of the 21st century as the age of complexity, that we will be entering an age of complexity and that we are in the midst of a great transformation, both society and organizations. And it's really a transformation from an old world to a new world. And we, as a picture, use two double S curves. On the one hand, you have a red curve. It depicts and represents the foundations for our present existence. These are your customers today. It's the technology you use today. It's the knowledge you have today, the people you have today, the products you have today. This is now. And hopefully you've been very successful with it. But there's something else. There's something new. Always. Something new that comes up. The green curve represents our future existence, our future customers, our future products, the knowledge of the future, what our people need to know what kind of people we will need in the future. This is substitution, right? This is disruption also partly. And to get from one to the other, there is a critical disruptive decision zone, really. This is where we have to make those decisions that were talked about. This is where we have to shift resources. We need new knowledge, new organizations, even organizational structures, new strategies. This is where big change happens, and that's where we need to train and enable people for the new. And I believe this has never been truer than today, and it becomes faster and faster. We see four main drivers for the transformation today. Demography is one. In different parts of the world, of the globe, demography works differently. In our countries, you have a lot of aging. This is very different here in South and Southeast Asia, of course. Japan is similar to ours, but it brings a lot of changes. Economic changes, of course. There's a lot of debt in the world. Let's see how that plays out, but that is a driver. Ecology and everything around climate is certainly something, and I know that there's a huge shift also in your country towards sustainability. And then there's technology. Most would probably consider that's the greatest shift. And among it, probably digitalization. And why digitalization? Because it connects everything to everything else. And that's what complexity is all about. When things get interconnected and elements work with each other and network, and there's a web of things, that's when complexity occurs and starts to happen. And that's where complexity is produced. And I would like to say something about complexity, and it has a lot to do with the opening question that we have. It, of course, talks about simplifying decision-making, but when faced with complexity, most people think about simplifying it. It's difficult. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. So let's keep it simple. That's a strategy you hear very often. But there's a huge problem with that when it comes to complexity. It's wrong. And not just a bit, it's dead wrong. You see, a German biologist once said, higher capability only comes from higher complexity. If you will, you can understand human evolution and actually evolution as such as a path towards ever greater complexity. Right? Your brain, to our knowledge, the most complex steering organism and control organism that nature has devised, is highly complex. If I asked you to please keep it simple and deposit half of your brain out at the door before you come in because you won't need it for my speech, you would rightly say, you're mad. I need my brain. It makes me who I am. It's the complexity that enables us to be who we are. Everything that is of higher order exhibits higher complexity. And so we need to use complexity. Complexity needs to be a resource, something that we need to seize. And that is something that in most organizations we don't do. We try to avoid it because we don't know how to deal with it. We don't know how to navigate it. We do need to simplify decision-making. That is clear. For that, we need to use complexity as a resource that lets us do exactly that. And we find faster, easier, simpler, and clearer, especially, solutions to our complex problems. And that's what we've tried in our organization over the years. We have developed the Syntegration. It has already been mentioned, the Syntegration. We like to say we are convinced that is so far the most powerful tool and method for complex problems and challenges and to manage complex transformations. And what it's meant to do is it is meant to help you, help organizations, even hopefully society, manage an optimal path of development and not fall into the trap of getting stuck on the red curve and missing out of the green curve. And one of the reasons behind it why it tries to do that is that it's much faster than tools that you usually have. And looking at how the pace is picking up almost by the minute, I believe we need faster methods and faster tools to guide us through the complexity we are faced with. Syntegration The name comes from synergy and integration. It combines the best of both worlds. It is a method to find optimal solutions for complex problems, any kind of complex problem really, and that in the fastest possible time. We're speaking days, not months and years, as lots of processes take. And it involves all the relevant stakeholders. Complexity, complex questions need a lot of knowledge, need a lot of people to be involved because that knowledge is required. If something is simple, you can do it with one person, you can do it with a little team, that's great, but most problems or our organizations face these days are complex, and you need a lot of people. And integration allows you to involve all the people necessary to do that and find consensus. So find alignment behind joint solutions that these people work out together. So integration maximizes collective intelligence. Everybody talks about artificial intelligence, and rightly so. It will disrupt everything. It's already disrupting everything. It will replace and upend a lot of things, and it will make a lot of people jobless. But these people are still here. What do we do with them? I believe there is so much more creativity in people, in organizations, in our employees, in the people we work with and surround ourselves with than we know. And I'm a fan of collective intelligence, right? It's in our joint brains that we find solutions that otherwise you can't find. And that's also very relevant for decision making, because I truly believe that you don't want to leave decision making up to artificial intelligence. There's always a gap between the best information that you get from data and the decision that you actually make. And any kind of decision needs to be implemented. And for that, you need to bring people along. So even the best data and the clearest answer you can get from machines, you still need to bring your people along. And most transformations fail because that's not the case. People don't have insight. They don't own them. They don't have buy-in. So they block them. There's barriers. And of course, my colleague said, REM barrier, try to remove these barriers. And hopefully that's another way to do exactly that. So you can think of Syntegration as a collective think tank, if you will. A think tank that is customized to your individual problems. And it enables a group of large people to work like one brain. Syntegration uses geometric designs. You see that little thing over there? Maybe hold it up. When you have that icon down there, that is the icosahedron. Thank you very much. That is the icosahedron. It's the largest platonic body. You also find these structures in nature, as you saw in that movie before. And we use this to optimize the information and communication flow between large groups of people. And optimizing that mathematically, and with the help of this, optimizes the distribution of knowledge and of views and of languages. And of language and much more. I'll just leave this here without falling down. So we use this to optimize that in a mathematical way. Now, why do we use this structure exactly? Why this structure? And here I want to briefly dive into something that is, in my opinion, often a misconception. Everything depends on people. And I just said that, right? It depends on our people, and that is absolutely true. But it's not the entire truth. Scientifically, it depends even more on how we interconnect people. All right? We can just sit here together, or we can talk to each other, and that can happen in very many different ways. So the relationship among people determines very much how communication happens and what we do with that. And I want to give you a few examples. If these little dots here represent people, all right? This is Shiva on the left side, this is you, Mr. Singh, me, my wife Andrea, and the captain, the last one, and they talk to one another in this way. I'm sure you have this game as well. In English, you call it silent Chinese whispers. We call it silent post in German. But we all know what it does. It produces nonsense, right? We whisper something in one ear and it goes on and on and on, and in the end, that was definitely not what was meant. You can turn this around and you have a lot of corporate structures. Right? These are the layers of a organization of a large organization, and you now know why the person on the shop floor doesn't understand what the board member was saying. Because it dribbles down basically through all the layers, and what comes out in the end is not what you want. You can rearrange this into this. That's also something that we find a lot nowadays. But this only results in maximal power. What we want scientifically is the maximal use of information. That's what allows us to navigate complexity and make the right decisions. But this here does not do that. It doesn't exploit the knowledge of our people at all. It just maximizes power. The ideal distribution of communication here is the small team. This one we know. If you have 5 people that sit together and communicate this way, it's ideal. Everybody can talk to everybody. Everybody can understand everybody. Excellent. But that's for simple solutions where 5 people are enough. What do you do when you have 40 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, larger groups of people that need to work together, and not just work together, but collaborate in a deeper sense? What do you do? And this is where now the icosahedron comes in, because it allows for large groups of people to communicate and work like the small team. It basically, you could say, it combines the best of both worlds. So far in the usual processes that we've had to deal with such things, you form either small teams, and that's the problem, that you have to coordinate them. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and you lose a lot of knowledge in between, along the way. Or you can make a conference, like here. I love this conference, I'm very glad to speak to you, but it's not very creative. We're not co-creating, right? So it's a one-way street. I speak, you listen, afterwards someone else will speak and listen, and it can be highly interesting. But it does not get out the creativity and the potential and the knowledge of all of you, because I don't hear from you. Right? So Syntegration tries and it does combine the best of both worlds. It lets large groups of people work, communicate, and work as effectively as the small team. And unfortunately, we don't have time now to dive into the subtleties of the entire process. I hope I won't confuse you on a higher level now, but I just briefly want to say what we do is we break down complex challenges into the most important topics, right, that need to be discussed to solve a challenge. And those topics represent the corners. In this structure here, you have 12 different corners. So 12 topics can be discussed simultaneously. And the people that are involved will be placed on these struts here. And as you can see, one person will always discuss 2 different topics. That's the same for everyone. And we have different roles, also criticism, constructive criticism, etc. And so 30 people, up to 40 and 45 people can discuss 12 topics simultaneously in 20 to 30 days in an interconnected way. What you get, Sheila, you were saying that it's about self-organization. You come up with a self-organizing flow and self-optimizing flow of communication and information that is able to get all the knowledge, all the viewpoints, everything out that is within a large group. To show you what that means, I've brought you this little video. 2 topics are always discussed at the same time. And the information that is being discussed is carried forward into other topics by the participants. At the same time, they bring the knowledge they have from other discussions into the individual topics that they have. Then 2 other topics are being discussed, and again, the information flow happens from the participants into the topic, and from the topic along the participants into other topics. This happens for 12 topics. It's an iterative process. This happens 3 times. And what this does is it distributes up to 90 to 95% mathematically proven knowledge, ideas, viewpoints around this structure. This means it creates, and that's a wonderful expression that I've learned in your country. I hope I will pronounce it correctly. Purvopaksh. Is that what? Yes? That's how you pronounce it? Perfect. So it creates a deep understanding of one another. And what that means is it lets people find joint solutions, common solutions, solutions that they can agree on, all 40 participants, It aligns them, it gives them buy-in, and it gives them ownership of the decisions that have to be made to deal and tackle that complex problem. Imagine, for example, your organization wants to go global, or it wants to grow ambitiously, or it wants to introduce a new technology, or it means to become sustainable throughout everything it does. These are all complex problems, and you need a lot of people to do that. Now, with integration, you can bring in all the people you need. You bring your finance people, you bring your marketing people, your sales people, you bring your experts on the product, but you also bring the decision makers, your board, and you even bring outside experts and your customers whom you need to work for, because that's why you're here. And all of these people can work together like one individual brain on such questions and find common solutions that they agree to and are aligned behind these solutions, and can take this forward and implement successfully what you have done. So Purva Paksh is something that we lack. We find in our experience when we work with organizations that the lack of understanding one another is one of the main reasons why people don't have buy-in and why there's barriers, again, in organizations, right? But creating 360-degree views and me understanding why you have the opinion you have and you have the opinion you have, and you understanding why my opinion is the way it is, can create common solutions, can create solutions that work on the highest common denominator, except just on a minimal compromise that people hopefully can live with. Here. So in a nutshell, integration for me is AAA. Amplification, alignment, and acceleration. The amplification of collective intelligence. The collective intelligence of your people in an organization, of the people you choose to be part of this. It brings out all the creativity, all the co-creation and participation that you can wish for. And it aligns hearts and minds of people, allowing for ownership and commitment on higher levels that we know so far. And most importantly, maybe in our times, it accelerates the decision-making process. Right? It gives you clarity and accelerates the way how you come to decisions. And that's how we believe in the future more and more organizations will and should navigate their complexity. That's what simplifies decision-making, because such a process will give you direction, precision, and speed. But that's how we believe in the future, and many organizations already do it. In the future, complexity can be tackled, can be mastered, and can be used as a resource in a human way. Because I repeat, I believe that people are the most important thing. It's nowhere more important, I believe, than in your country of 1.4 billion people. That's an incredible treasure trove of creativity and of knowledge that needs to be seized. Mr. Singh always so eloquently talks about tacit knowledge. In all our organizations and entire society, we have so much tacit knowledge that is just waiting to be made explicit. And this, making it explicit, you can find the solutions to most complex problems. And with this, I close. Thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to your great discussion and good question. Thank you very much for that.